Remove that makeup from your face or this wedding will not hold. Nancy froze. At first, she thought she didn't hear him well. Maybe nerves, maybe the microphone echoed, maybe someone else spoke. But Bright stepped closer, his face tight, his eyes cold. I said, clean it off. This wedding will not hold until you remove that makeup. The church went silent. Not quiet, silent. The kind of silence that feels heavy, like the air itself is watching. Nancy's fingers tightened around her bouquet. Her heart started beating so fast she could hear it in her ears. Bright, she whispered, forcing a smile that felt stiff and painful. It's very light. You said you wanted natural. This is just small powder. Submission starts from here, he said flatly. If you cannot obey this simple instruction now, what will you obey in marriage? A low murmur spread through the congregation. People leaned towards each other. Some shook their heads. Some stared openly. Flora, Nancy's best friend, stepped forward quickly. Bright, please. Everyone is watching. Let's not do this now. He didn't even look at her. This is between me and my wife. Nancy felt something inside her chest drop. Not wife yet. Not officially. But the way he said it made her feel trapped already. Her mother sat in the front row, eyes wide with confusion. Her father's face had gone pale. Bright family watched quietly, not saying a word. Nancy suddenly wished the ground would open and swallow her. That morning, she had been so careful. Bright had always said he didn't like makeup. He preferred a natural woman. He said heavy makeup meant pride, disobedience, worldliness. So, she obeyed. No bold lipstick, no dramatic eyeshadow. Just a light touch to smooth her skin and help her not look tired after sleepless nights of wedding stress. When she looked in the mirror earlier, she had actually felt beautiful, soft, calm, ready. Now, she felt exposed, humiliated, wrong. Clean it, Bright said again, louder this time. The pastor shifted uncomfortably. The choir stopped completely. Even the air conditioner seemed too loud in the silence. For one brief second, a tiny voice inside her whispered, "Say no." But fear swallowed it immediately. Cancelling a wedding at the altar was not just embarrassing. It was social death. Months of planning, money spent, family reputation, public shame, endless gossip. She couldn't do that to her parents. She couldn't do that to herself. Slowly, her hands began to shake. She passed the bouquet to Flora. Flora's eyes were wet. "Nancy, you don't have to do this." Nancy forced a weak smile. "It's okay." It wasn't okay. Someone handed her wipes. Someone else held up a small mirror. Her fingers trembled as she cleaned her face. Her lipstick smelled slightly. She kept wiping until her skin felt dry and tight and exposed, until she no longer recognized the bride in the mirror. When she finally looked up, Bright examined her face slowly, like someone inspecting a product before buying it. Then, he nodded once. Better. No apology. No softness. Nothing. Just approval. Nancy felt something inside her break quietly. The pastor cleared his throat quickly. "Shall we continue?" Nancy swallowed a lump in her throat. Yes, and the wedding continued. They exchanged vows. They wore rings. They smiled for photo. Guests clapped. Music played. People cheered. From the outside, it looked like a perfect wedding. Inside, Nancy felt empty, like she had left herself somewhere behind. At the reception, she became an actress. She smiled until her cheek hurt. She laughed at jokes she didn't hear. She danced even when her legs felt weak. Every time someone said, "You look so happy," she nodded like it was true. Flora pulled her aside at one point. "Are you sure you're okay?" Nancy swallowed hard. "I am fine." She said it so many times that day it became automatic. I am fine, I am fine, I am fine. But inside, something kept whispering, this is not how wedding day should feel. Marriage did not change Bright. If anything, it removed the mask completely. 2 weeks after the honeymoon, Nancy had cooked dinner, his favorite soup, carefully prepared after watching videos and calling his mother for tips. She tasted it repeatedly to make sure it was perfect. She served him with a hopeful smile. When he tasted it, his expression darkened. Is this what you call food? Nancy's smile faded. Did I miss something? I can fix it. The plate flew from his hand and crashed against the wall. Food slid down the thighs slowly. Nancy jumped, her heart slamming against her ribs. You never listen! He snapped. I am sorry, she said immediately. I'll make something else. Her hands shook as she cleaned the mess, cooked again, served him quietly. That night, she cried silently into her pillow so he wouldn't hear. She told herself marriage was adjustment, stress, learning each other. It would get better. It didn't. The anger came more often. Sharp words, harsh criticism, sudden outbursts over small things. If the house wasn't perfect, if food was late, if she spoke when he didn't want to talk, if he stayed quiet when he wanted attention, nothing was ever right. Nancy tried everything, apologizing quickly, speaking softly, avoiding arguments, walking carefully around his moods like someone walking on broken glass. When she became pregnant, she felt hope again. Maybe a baby would soften him. Maybe fatherhood would calm him. Maybe love would finally grow in their home. But the tension only increased. One evening, during an argument, Nancy lost her balance on the staircase. Her foot slipped. Her body tumbled down several steps before landing hard on the floor below. Pain exploded through her body. For a few seconds, she couldn't breathe. She lay there, stunned, one hand protecting her stomach, terrified for her baby. Bright stood at the top of the stairs, breathing heavily, staring down at her. Nancy looked up at him through tears. For one desperate moment, she waited for him to rush down, to help her, to say her name, to ask if she was okay. He didn't. He turned and walked away, leaving her on the floor, alone. Eventually, a neighbor heard her weak cries and rushed in. That was how she got to the hospital. The hospital became familiar, too familiar. Different nurses, same questions. What happened? Nancy forced a small smile. Kitchen accident. She repeated that phrase so often it became automatic. Kitchen accident. She told it to doctors, nurses, family members, friends. She wore long sleeves even when the weather was hot, avoided gatherings, learned how to smile without moving too much. At night, she begged him to change. Please, my husband, she whispered one night, tears soaking her pillow. I love you. We can fix this. We can go for counseling. We can pray together. We can... I don't have any problem, he replied coldly. You are the problem. Sometimes, he acted nice afterward, brought her fruit, spoke gently, even held her hand. Those moments kept her hope alive. Maybe he would change. Maybe tomorrow would be different. But tomorrow always looked the same, like a storm that never truly leaves. It only gathers strength before the next strike. As her pregnancy advanced, Nancy moved slowly, carefully, protectively. She talked to her unborn baby every day. It's okay, she whispered, rubbing her belly. Mommy is strong. We are going to be okay. She wasn't sure she believed it, but she needed to say it. One afternoon at the hospital, a nurse studied her chart, then her face. You've been here several times, the nurse said softly. Nancy nodded. What happened today? Nancy forced her usual smile. Kitchen accident. The nurse didn't argue, didn't question. She simply reached out and squeezed Nancy's hand gently. That simple touch almost broke her, because for the first time, Nancy felt seen as someone silently suffering. Months later, Nancy gave birth on a quiet morning after a long, exhausting night labor. When she finally heard her baby cry, something deep inside her loosened. Tears rolled down her temples into her hair. "Your baby is fine," he nurse said gently. They placed the child beside her for a moment. Nancy stared at the little face in disbelief. A soft whisper escaped her lips. "We made it." For that brief moment, the pain faded, the fear faded, even the memories of the last month softened. She felt hope again. Maybe this child would bring peace into the home. Maybe Bright would soften. Maybe fatherhood would change him. She clung to that hope like oxygen. Bright visited later that day. He stood beside the bed, looking at the baby without much expression. "Congratulations," he said flatly. Nancy searched his face for warmth, for pride, for something. "Thank you," she replied quietly. He nodded once, then sat down and began scrolling through his phone. Nancy watched him, her heart sinking slowly. Even now, nothing had changed, but she refused to give up hope. The first month after childbirth were exhausting. Sleepless nights, feeding, crying, healing from delivery while caring for a newborn. Nancy did everything mostly alone. Bright complained about the baby's crying, disturbing his rest. He moved to the living room many nights, muttering under his breath. Nancy would rock the child gently in the dim light, whispering soft words just to keep herself from crying too. "You're my strength," she would murmur. "We will be okay." Days turned into months. The tension in the house returned fully. Sharp words, cold silence, sudden outburst. Nancy worked even harder now. Medical bills, baby supplies, rent, food, everything depended on her. She barely rested, yet she never complained. She kept believing that if she loved enough, endured enough, prayed enough, things would change. Pain became Nancy's daily companion, not the kind that goes away after rest or medication. This was the kind that settled deep inside her bones, inside her chest, inside her thoughts. Some mornings, she woke up already tired, not from work, but from surviving the day before. There were days she would sit at the edge of the bed after Bright left the room, holding her ribs or her arm or her stomach, breathing slowly until the sharp ache reduced to something manageable. Other days, the pain was not physical at all. It was regret, heavy, choking regret. Regret for ignoring the warning signs. Regret for defending him to everyone. Regret for believing love alone could change a person who didn't want to change. But hope refused to die, even when everything else had. She kept telling herself, tomorrow will be better. One evening, she came home late from work. Traffic had been terrible, and one of her suppliers delayed her for hours. Bright was sitting in the living room. No greeting, no smile, just a dark look. "You're just coming back?" he asked. "I called to explain," Nancy said gently. "There was traffic and... So your business is more important than your home now, right?" "That's not what I meant." Before she could finish, he stood up abruptly, knocking his chair backward. The sudden movement made her flinch. "I have been hungry for hours," he snapped. "I'll warm the food immediately." She hurried towards the kitchen, but dizziness hit her. She hadn't eaten since morning. The room tilted slightly. She steadied herself on the counter. Behind her, Bright's voice rose again, sharp and accusing. "You are pretending now, acting weak, right?" "I'm not pretending," she whispered. "I just need a minute." But he was already furious. In the chaos that followed, Nancy lost her footing on the tiled floor. Her head struck the edge of the table as she went down. The sound was sickening. Everything went blurry. When she opened her eyes again, she was in the hospital again. Her side ached with every breath. Even shifting slightly felt like lifting something heavy. The doctor spoke gently about exhaustion, stress, dehydration. Words floated around her without fully sinking in. Nancy simply nodded. When asked what happened, she gave the same answer she had given so many times before. Kitchen accident. Later that day, Flora came. The moment she entered the ward and saw Nancy lying there, pale, weak, marked by pain, her face changed completely. She moved closer slowly, as if afraid Nancy might break. Her eyes filled immediately. For a long moment, she just stared at the bruises, the bandage, the tiredness written all over Nancy's face. Then her voice came out low and broken. "But I warned you not to marry him, didn't I? You said you were in love. You said he would change." Nancy closed her eyes briefly. Flora wasn't only the one who had warned her. Her parents had warned her too. Her mother had pleaded with her to take time, to observe carefully, to listen to her heart instead of rushing. Her father had been uneasy from the beginning. He couldn't explain it, but something about Bright didn't sit well with him. Nancy dismissed their concerns gently but firmly. She called Bright a good man, a God-fearing man, most importantly, a pastor. Nancy and Bright had met during a prayer meeting. It was one of those intense gatherings where people prayed for hours without noticing time. The atmosphere felt charged with emotion and expectation. Then Bright stepped forward to lead prayer. His voice filled the room like thunder. He spoke with authority, passion, urgency. Scriptures poured out of him effortlessly. He prayed as if he could see what others couldn't see, as if heaven was right in front of him. People wept openly. Some knelt. Some stretched their hands towards him as if reaching for something holy. Nancy stood frozen, deeply moved. She had never encountered someone so intense, so focused, so devoted. After the meeting, he spoke to her briefly. His voice was calm then, almost gentle. He said he noticed her sincerity during prayer, said her spirit was pure, said God had great plans for her life. Those words stayed with her long after she went home. They began talking, meeting at church events, praying together, sharing spiritual experiences. Her admiration grew into affection. Affection slowly became love, or what she believed was love. Brett later became an assistant pastor in a church. On the altar, he was unstoppable. He preached with fire, with force, with conviction that made people sit upright and listen. His messages were intense, sometimes frightening, always powerful. People respected him deeply. Some feared him. Many believed he was destined for greatness. Nancy felt honored that such a man chose her. But marriage revealed a different reality. Bright had no interest in working or building a stable life. All he did was fast, pray, read the Bible for long hours, and spend endless time on his phone. Nancy came from a comfortable background. She had education, connections, and business sense. Opportunities came to her easily because she worked hard and people trusted her. She tried many times to connect Bright to jobs or business partnerships. He rejected them all. "I am not called to serve men," he would say. "I am called to serve God." Yet, he made no effort to provide financially. Nancy paid the bills, bought food, handled school needs, managed medical expenses, took care of everything. She carried the entire household on her shoulders. Still, she never complained. She believed supporting her husband was part of being a good wife. She hoped that one day he would become responsible, that something would awaken inside him, that love and patience would inspire change. But instead, frustration grew. Bright became increasingly angry, often blaming her for his lack of success. His mood darkened. His words became harsher. Nancy kept everything to herself. She didn't tell her parents. She didn't tell her friends. She didn't tell church members who admired their spiritual marriage. She bore the pain quietly, alone. Years passed. 11 long years of endurance, 11 years of hoping tomorrow would be different, 11 years of praying for transformation that never came. Nancy hated the idea of a broken marriage. She feared raising a child alone. She couldn't imagine becoming a single mother. She admired her parents deeply. 40 years together, still strong, still loving, still respectful. She wanted that kind of marriage. So, she stayed. She prayed. She endured. She told herself that perseverance would eventually produce a miracle. But the miracle never came. Instead, exhaustion grew. Hope grew thinner. Her heart grew heavier. Until one day, something happened that would change everything forever. It was Friday night. It was supposed to be an ordinary church vigil day. In Pastor Bright's house, vigil nights were not optional. They were sacred, non-negotiable, proof of spiritual seriousness. As the assistant pastor, he always arrived early to meet members for counseling and special prayers before the main service began. That evening, he dressed carefully in his usual white shirt and dark trousers. Nancy sat quietly on the bed behind him. Her body felt heavy, weak, drained in a way she couldn't explain. The whole week had been exhausting. Business stress, house responsibilities, caring for the children, sleepless nights. She could barely lift her head. "We need to leave now," Bright said, adjusting his shirt. "I have counseling before vigil." Nancy spoke softly. "I am not going tonight." He turned slowly. "What do you mean you are not going?" "I am very weak," she said. "I just need rest." For a moment, he stared at her as if processing an insult. "How will you not go?" His voice hardened. "How can a pastor's wife be absent from vigil?" Nancy swallowed. Even talking felt like a fault. "Please, go ahead. I will stay with the children." His expression darkened immediately. "So, church is now something you attend when you feel like?" "That's not what I said." "Then what are you saying?" She pressed her palm against her forehead. "I am just tired, Bright, please." Something in him snapped. "Stand up," he ordered. "Get ready now." "I can't." He stepped closer, anger rising fast. "You must come." Nancy shook her head weakly. "Please, not tonight." What happened next came suddenly, violently, and without restraint. His hands grabbed her arm hard, yanking her up from the bed. Pain shot through her shoulder instantly. "I said you are coming." Nancy cried out, trying to steady herself. "You are hurting me." But his grip tightened. He shoved her back onto the bed. His voice loud, sharp, uncontrolled. Words poured out, accusations, insults, anger built over years. Nancy tried to protect herself, calling slightly, pleading through tears. "Please, I am not strong, please." But he didn't stop. The room became a storm of chaos, forceful movements, harsh sound, fear flooding her entire body. Every attempt to shield herself only made the pain worse. Her head struck the wooden headboard. Stars exploded behind her eyes. She felt warmth on her face, not tears. Something thicker. Her ears rang loudly. The room tilted. "Please," she whispered weakly. Her strength was gone. The world began to fade at the edges. The last thing she saw was Bright stepping away, breathing hard, adjusting his clothes as if preparing to leave. Then darkness swallowed everything. Hours later, the house was silent. The children slept, unaware of the nightmare unfolding just a room away. Nancy lay motionless on the floor where she had fallen after sliding from the bed. Her breathing was shallow, her body unresponsive. It might have ended there, but around that time, a neighbor knocked on the door. He needed a charger urgently. Nancy was known for helping people, so he expected her to answer. Knock, no response. He knocked again, still nothing. He noticed the door wasn't properly locked. Concern replaced impatience. "Nancy!" he called as he pushed the door open. He stepped inside and saw her lying on the floor, still unmoving. Panic seized him immediately. "Nancy! Madam Nancy!" He rushed forward, shaking her gently. No response. Her skin felt cold, her breathing barely noticeable. Within minutes, everything turned frantic. Phone calls, shouting for help, rushing footsteps. She was carried out and taken straight to the hospital. At the hospital, doctors moved quickly. Her condition was critical. Someone called Bright. "This is the hospital. Your wife was brought in unconscious. Her situation is serious." There was a pause. Then his voice came, calm, dismissive, almost irritated. "My wife is a drama queen. She will wake up when she's done with the drama." The line went dead. He did not come. He did not call again. He did not ask about her condition. Nancy remained in the hospital for days, drifting between unconsciousness and faint awareness. During examinations, doctors discovered something else. She was pregnant, only a few weeks along. She hadn't known, but the pregnancy did not survive. When Nancy finally regained full consciousness, her body hurt everywhere. Even breathing required effort. She stared at the ceiling, memories returning slowly like pieces of a shattered mirror. The arguments, the force, the fall, the darkness. Then the doctor's soft explanation. "You were pregnant, but we couldn't save the baby." Her heart broke in complete silence. No scream, no dramatic reaction, just a deep hollow emptiness spreading inside her chest. She turned her face towards the wall and closed her eyes. Not only had she lost a child she didn't even know she was carrying, she had gone through it alone. Bright never came, not once. As the days passed, Nancy had nothing to do but think. She thought about her life, about the years she had endured, about the warnings she ignored, but most of all, she thought about her children. What if the neighbor hadn't come? What if she had died on that floor? Who would protect them? Who would love them? The thought shook her deeply. For the first time, something inside her shifted. Not anger, not even grief. Clarity. She realized that staying was no longer just about suffering. It was about the risk to her children. And suddenly, enduring didn't feel noble anymore. It felt dangerous. When she was finally discharged from the hospital, she didn't go back home. Instead, she took her children and moved into a small apartment arranged quietly through a trusted contact. The place was small, but it was peaceful. No shouting, no fear, no tension thick enough to choke on. That first night, Nancy watched her children sleep peacefully beside her. Tears slid silently down her face, not tears of weakness, tears of release. She began the process of starting over. It wasn't easy. Paperwork, planning, financial adjustment, emotional exhaustion. She decided to leave the country completely. She needed distance, safety, a fresh start. Months passed as she processed documents, applied for visa, gathered resources. Then one day, approval came. Nancy held the visa in her hands and cried, not because everything would suddenly become easy, but because escape had become real. She left with her children, carrying only what mattered. Life abroad was tough at first. New environment, new systems, no familiar faces. She took courses to upgrade her skills, studied late at night, applied for jobs tirelessly. Some days she felt overwhelmed, but she kept going because now she was fighting for survival, not trying to preserve an illusion. Eventually, she secured a job, stable income, routine, structure. Her children adjusted to school. They began to smile again, genuine smiles she hadn't seen in a long time. Slowly, peace replaced chaos. Nancy began to heal. One evening, Watching her children play freely in their small living room, she realized something powerful. She was no longer living in fear, and that freedom was worth everything she had lost. And here is the moral of this story. Endurance is not always a virtue. Sometimes what people call patience is actually silent suffering, and silence can become dangerous when it protects the wrong people instead of the right one. Love is not proven by how much pain you can absorb. Sometimes the bravest decision a person can make is choosing life over fear, truth over appearances, and the future of their children over the expectation of society. I hope you enjoyed this story. If you love stories like this, like this video and subscribe to this channel so you don't miss our next upload. I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.